Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's SANS webcast, Leveraging Organizational Change to Build a Strong Security Culture. My name is Carol Auth of SANS, and I will be moderating today's webcast. Today's featured speaker is Lance Spitzner, Certified SANS Instructor. If during the webcast you have any questions for Lance, please enter them into the questions window at any time. Please note that this webcast is being recorded, and a copy of the slides and recording of this webcast will be available for viewing later today and can be found on the SANS registration page. And with that, I'd like to hand the webcast over to Lance.
All right. Hey, thanks so much, Carol. All right, folks, good morning, good afternoon, and or good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Lance Spitzner, and I will be your host for today's adventure. For today, we're going to be focusing on something I'm very passionate about: security culture, people's attitudes, perceptions, and beliefs towards security in your organizations. This is something I'm very passionate about. In fact, this is my job. I'm a director at SANS Security Awareness. My job and passion is working with organizations around the world to do exactly about what we're going to talk about here. Now, we're going to keep this fun, short, and interactive. It's only going to be about half an hour. Carol's going to be tracking questions, so if you do have any questions, post them, and then we'll go through and answer those questions afterwards. As Carol mentioned also, this will be recorded, and the slides will be available online. All right, with all that said, let's go ahead and jump right in. Now, before I start talking about culture and or the solution, I always like to start first with, well, what's the problem? What are we trying to solve and why? So that's what we're going to do today, is first briefly start with, well, what's the issue? Now, what's interesting is quite often when it comes to people and culture, we in the security community tend to blame people. Far too often I hear a statement from other fellow security professionals, something like, Lance, you just can't patch stupid. This is in itself the problem. We need to stop blaming people, and we need to take a moment and start looking at ourselves. When I hear a security professional tell me this, my response is usually something along the lines of, well, maybe you should actually go look in the mirror. We're going to take a hard look at security culture in your organization, and then all organizations. But ultimately, the core fundamental problem we're going to see here is it's not people. Quite often, the problem with our security culture is us, the security people. So we're going to take an uncomfortable look at what could that potential issue be, but more importantly, how can we fix and or address it? So what is the problem? This is one of my favorite ways to demonstrate. Think of people like an operating system. You and I store, process, and transfer information, just like any other computer. Now, 20 years ago, it was easy to both hack people and the Windows operating system. If I took a default install of a Windows computer and put it on the internet 20 years ago, that computer would be found and hacked in 3 hours. Now, Microsoft felt a tremendous amount of pain, and in the past 20 years has done a tremendous amount of work to secure the default installation of a Windows computer. We've gotten good at using technology to secure technology. Because of all these technical controls, nowadays, if I took a default install of a Windows computer and put it on the internet, it would take months, if not years, before that system was hacked. That is until the human touches the keyboard. When people touch the keyboard, as we know, all bets are off, because what we quite often hear is, well, why? People are the weakest link. Okay, but why? Why are people the weakest link? Is it because they've done something wrong? Is it their fault? No. The problem is with the human operating system is compared to what Microsoft has done for Windows, we have done very little for the human operating system. We've done very little to engage them in their terms so they can understand. In fact, I would argue we have gotten so good at using technology to secure technology, we're literally driving the bad guy to hack the human. And this is a key fundamental part of this entire approach to culture. As a result of what you see here, people are not the weakest link. Instead, people are the primary attack vector. I really prefer this approach because when you say people are the weakest link, it implies it's their fault. They're dumb, they're stupid, they're lazy. But when you say people are the primary attack vector, it helps imply that maybe we're not doing something right. And that's the whole basis of what we're going to talk about this morning. So first and foremost, approach culture like this. People are the primary attack vector. And the reason is because we have not approached security in their terms. But I mentioned this word culture, and it's just not about changing human behavior. When you're talking about culture, you're talking about people's perceptions, attitudes, and beliefs. Now, far too often, we in the security community perceive incidents and breaches as a technical issue. Classic example, the Equifax breach of 2017, one of the most epic we've had here in North America. Over 140 million records stolen. And we're not just talking email addresses and passwords. We're talking financial records, the Social Security, I mean, the whole works. It was a mess. Now, talk to any geek and say Equifax breach, and the first words out of their mouth is Struts vulnerability, Apache vulnerability. And what ends up happening is we perceive this as a technical issue, but that's not the case. What's fantastic, and something a lot of people don't know, is in 2018, US Congress released a fantastic detailed breach report on the incident. Probably to date, the best detailed open report I've personally seen on a major breach. Find it, download it, read it. It's a fantastic read. Long story short, this was not a Struts vulnerability issue. This was a cultural issue. Equifax's security culture was extremely dysfunctional from the top on down. Why was the system unpatched? Because nobody was in charge of their vulnerability management program. Why was nobody in charge of their vulnerability management program? Ultimately goes back to culture. So the Struts vulnerability was merely a symptom of something far more fundamental, and it got to that core of culture. So the reason I'm going to be focusing on culture here is not only does it help us address the human behavior, but so many technical security initiatives fail because of a broken culture also. So it's not just about people and changing behavior, but it's about ensuring your vulnerability management program is successful, DevSecOps is successful, your IR program, your SOC deployment. All of it ultimately depends on culture. So what is culture and how do we address this issue? Well, first and foremost, what ends up happening is this. We're going to apply Newton's first law. And you're like, huh? What? Read a lot of fascinating research, and we're going to show you in a moment all these different resources on culture. And people are like mass. So it turns out Newton's first law is all about an object at rest stays at rest. If you want to change the object, you have to apply a force. Turns out people are exactly the same. Due to a variety of cognitive biases and behavioral modeling and things like that, turns out people don't like to change. They don't change behavior, they don't change the way they think unless a force has to be applied. So what ends up happening is when it comes to building a strong security culture, we are going to have to apply a force, just like Newton did to mass. By the way, remember that equation. You see F equals ma? For the nerds out there, some of you already know this. Force equals mass times acceleration. We're going to be coming back to Newton's first law here in just a moment. Actually, Newton's second law states the equation. It's Newton's first law that states an object at rest remains at rest. So what ends up happening is this. I get this. A lot of times organizations will go, Lance, you know what? We know we need to apply a force to our organization to change human behavior and create that strong security culture. And then I'll hear, we, the security teams, we've got this covered. And what will happen is the security team will roll out a security awareness program saying, we are changing human behavior. We are creating a secure culture. But there's a problem. And the problem is this. When you and I, fellow security geeks, when we go forth to communicate to our organization, to talk to people, to help secure our organization and build that strong security culture, this is how us fellow geeks perceive ourselves. We go forth, we are the digital guardians of cyberspace, here to save the world from the evils of cyber attackers, cyber criminals, APT, hacktivists. This is how you and I perceive ourselves. But there's a problem. When you and I go forth to communicate to and engage our workforce, when we're trying to help build that security culture, we may perceive ourselves as this, but this is not how the rest of the world perceives us. 99.9% of the rest of the regular normal world perceives you and me like this. That's right, nerds. By the way, can anybody post or guess what the name of this movie is? This is actually a screenshot from a very famous movie. And if you haven't already guessed it, the movie is Revenge of the Nerds. By the way, if you knew the name of this movie, that means two things. One, you're a nerd. Two, you're an old nerd. Folks, this is from the 80s. But no, seriously, there's an issue of cognitive bias known as curse of knowledge, which states the more of an expert you are at something, the worse you are at communicating it or teaching about it. Because to you and me, cybersecurity is very simple. It's our passion. And then we start throwing all these acronyms, terms, and technologies out, and we lose people. So what we have to do is take a step back and stop communicating to people as geeks and apply the world of something called organizational change, behavioral economics, behavioral modeling. The whole idea of let's understand how people operate. Let's work with human nature, not fight it. So what's interesting is in cybersecurity, I tend to find a culture where we think all the problems we face are new and have never been faced before. Now, in sometimes, or in many cases, this is true. We deal with technologies that have never existed before. We deal with threats that have never existed before. As a result, we deal with risks that have never existed before. But when it comes to culture and people, these are challenges that have existed, well, frankly, for thousands of years. And there is a tremendous amount of scientific, academic, and theoretical research on how to build strong cultures. Now, it could be an innovative culture, it could be a diverse culture, or it could be a secure culture. But instead of going out and reinventing the wheel, let's go out to this field. It's a very broad field known as organizational change, or in their lingo, change management. And the whole idea is, how do we cause change at an organizational level where we go beyond just behavior and we start changing culture? And like I said, all sorts of scientific studies, fantastic publications. Here are probably the most influential that have impacted me. And what's absolutely fascinating by all these publishers and researchers, quite a few, by the way, are Nobel Prize winners, is I quickly, just not quickly, over the progress of several years, began to notice all of this different research, all of these different authors and researchers and scientists were actually all fundamentally saying the same thing, but just from different perspectives. So one of the things I've been doing with my research over the past several years is take this wealth of knowledge and then synthesize it into something simple we can apply specifically to our world in creating strong, secure cultures. Now, I'm commonly asked when I show this slide, Lance, this is awesome. What book do you recommend I start with? There are all sorts of great books here, but I really recommend if this is something you want to nerd out on, start with this book called Switch by Dan and Chip Heath. They're actually brothers. And this is one of the simplest books. It's the easiest to read, but it really helps lay this foundation and pull all these other elements together. Probably the last book I would recommend reading is the one right above it, Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. That one is the hardest to read, and not because it's poorly written, but it is so information dense. The book itself won Daniel Kahneman a Nobel Prize. And wow, it's just mind-blowing. So the reason I recommend reading the others before getting to Thinking Fast and Slow is the whole idea that you'll really understand the concepts, and that book brings it all together. So long story short, I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm just taking a lot of amazing research by really, really smart people and synthesizing it into a simple format that we can apply. And this includes also things not shown here, like John Cotter's 8-step model, ProSize ADKAR model, BJ Fogg's behavior model, all sorts of fascinating research, but all ultimately saying the same thing. Here's one of the key fundamental takeaways from all this different research. And this is especially based on Thinking Fast and Slow, but the other books say the same thing. The human brain really operates at two levels, and this is fascinating. One, it's called System 1 and System 2. System 2 is how you and I think our brain normally operates. And that's when your brain is operating from a very logical, rational, data-driven perspective. Think Spock, like we have on the screen right here. And the whole idea is this. We perceive our brain is always operating in System 2. Intake information, analyze information, and make a very logical decision based on information. But turns out that's very intense, process heavy, very energy intense. And for evolutionary purposes, our brain does not like to operate in System 2 because it's so energy calorie intensive. By default, our brain operates in what's called stage 1. That's gut instinct, emotion, intuition. We really don't process, we just make the decision. Now, the advantage with System 1, far less resource intensive, and you can make some pretty good decisions with some very limited information. What does this have to do with security? Easy. Vast majority of time when I see policies, processes, and procedures created, when I see security outreach programs conducted, when I see security architect and design, we always wrap around this concept that people are operating or behaving like Spock from a very logical, analytical perspective. The problem is that's how not most people operate. And folks, and when I say most people, I mean you and I. Turns out what ends up happening is this. We need to design our entire security architecture, policies, processes, and procedures, and our outreach for System 1. So if we should not be designing for Spock, who do we have representing System 1? This is who we should be designing cybersecurity for. Yes, Homer Simpson. Now, I'm in no way trying to imply people are lazy or stupid. What I am trying to say is we really have to target and design everything on that emotional response, intuitive response. And if you really want to nerd out on this, this whole concept is best explained by that book, Thinking Fast and Slow. In fact, they give a great example of how our brain operates in System 1 instead of going to System 2. Here is an example. I'm giving you a word challenge, and the word challenge is this. And this comes straight out of Daniel Kahneman's book. And the word challenge is a baseball bat and a baseball together. They cost $1.10. Now, the bat costs $1 more than the ball. All right, if the bat is $1 more, then How much is the ball? Quick, what's the answer? If the first number that jumped to your head was, well, 10 cents, that's your system one kicking in. And that happens to many of us, including myself, when I read the word challenge here. But think about it. If the bat costs $1 more than the ball, and the ball is 10 cents, that means the bat costs $1.10, which means the total price is $1.20. So for the Spocks out there, how much is the ball? Yes, 5 cents, because baseball bat is $1.05, baseball is 5 cents, $1.10. Now, if you like these little word puzzles and ideas to help demonstrate how the human brain operates, the book Thinking Fast and Slow and or Nudge by Sunstein and Thaler are fantastic resources. All I'm trying to do is force us to think, hey, we've got to take a step back. We can't take a purely logical approach to people when it comes to security. We have to take a more human, emotional, intuitive approach. We don't want to fight human nature. Let's leverage and work with it. How do we do that? Easy. Do you remember that slide earlier where I referenced Newton? What was Newton's first law, or actually his second law, sorry. The equation force F equals ma. In his equation, m stood for mass, a stood for acceleration, sorry. So what ends up happening here is we need to do the same thing for people, apply a force. But for people, the M stands for motivation, the A stands for ability. So we need to first motivate change, and then we need to enable change. So I'm going to take some fundamental things here where I see most security cultures fail. And the most fundamental thing most security cultures fail is this. Whenever there's any security outreach, whenever there's a security initiative, the failure is this. We forget to start with why. Far too often, every security outreach, communication, initiative, SOCs, DevSecOps, vulnerability management, whatever, we, the geeky community, always start with, folks, this is what you need to do, and this is how you do it. Fantastic book and research by a very, very smart guy called Simon Sinek, an amazing speaker. In fact, he's got a great video on TED Talks or YouTube called The Golden Circle. And it's the very fundamental concept of his book. And the whole purpose of the book is he brings out the most inspirational leaders, the most effective marketing campaigns, the most engaging outreach programs. Don't start with explaining, hey folks, this is what you should do, and this is how you should do it. Or this is what we do, and this is how we do it. What he bases his entire book on is this fundamental concept of start with why. Engage people at a Homer Simpson level of why cybersecurity is important, or vulnerability management, DevSecOps, whatever. This demonstrates that cognitive bias curse of knowledge, what I explained earlier. Far too often, we, the security community, we know why such a behavior or such an initiative is important. And as a result, we assume it must be obvious to everyone else. Hey, we're going to roll out password managers. Folks, this is what you're going to do, and this is how you use password managers. Never thinking about maybe we should explain to people why they should care about password managers, why password managers make them more secure, their life simpler, make passwords easier, things like that. Anytime we do any type of security outreach, we want to start with why. And then, like I said, don't communicate at a logical level, communicate at an emotional level. And this is, once again, reinforced by a variety of those different books, especially that book I mentioned earlier by Dan and Chip Keith, the book called Switch. Instead of calling it the Golden Circle, they call it the Elephant and the Rider. Same concept. Okay, so what happens is when it comes to why, think about it. In a lot of ways, what we're attempting to do is sell a product. But instead of selling shoes or laundry detergent, we're selling security. Well, if we're selling, why not just steal models from the world of marketing and selling? So one of the things I love to do is whenever I'm doing any type of outreach, trying to build a stronger culture, I'm using marketing models like the AIDA marketing model. Now, this is one of the oldest and simplest marketing models out there. That's why I love it. It's very old, reliable, and simple. And the whole idea behind this model is you want to get people in a funnel. Once you get their attention, generate interest in whatever you're attempting to do, generate desire. Now, we don't have time to nerd out about the AIDA model, but the next time you've got a big security rollout, a big security initiative, say you're rolling out password managers, say you're rolling out two-factor authentication, before you go running around telling people what to do and how to do it, apply that golden circle. Tell them why it's important. Don't know how to do it? Go to your marketing team and say, hey, we have this product we need to market internally. It's called two-factor authentication. Do you have models like AIDA that can help me sell it? And the best part is marketing probably won't know what 2FA is. That's a perk, because if marketing doesn't understand what you're trying to push out, your workforce won't understand it either. So you have to be able to explain it to your marketing in terms they can understand, so your workforce will understand it also. This is key, folks. If we don't address that human element of why, everything else we do afterwards, it's just noise. That is why so many security initiatives fail, why so many outreach programs fail, and to be honest, why a lot of security cultures really struggle. But the other key flip side from all of this is the concept of ability, ensuring we enable people to do what it is we want them to do. Ability is really all about making security as simple as possible. And if you think about it, we've done a really bad job at it because we make it simple for us, not realizing it's difficult, scary, intimidating, and complex for 99% of the world. So one of the books I referenced is this one called Nudge by Thaler and Sunstein. And it's the whole idea of architecting environments to get people to do what you want. The book does a very, very deep dive into how people think, their cognitive biases, things like that. So it's similar to Thinking Fast and Slow. But what Thaler and Sunstein do is then, based on how humans operate, how can you create environments where the choices they make are the choices you want them to make? How can we guide them? How can we literally nudge them without people even realizing they're being nudged? Make it as simple as possible for people to make the decisions we want them to make. The book Switch, once again, calls this clearing the path. So fantastic. There's lots and lots and lots of fun stories, but here's one of the simplest from the Nudge book on how they nudge people into a certain behavior. In this case, it was men and public restrooms, specifically in airport public restrooms, specifically Schiphol. Apparently, at the public restrooms in the Schiphol airport, there was an issue with spillage. Apparently, sometimes us men aren't very good with our aim when it comes to the urinals. And the spillage was causing high costs in cleanup. So instead of putting up all these signs explaining to all the men that it would be appreciated if they improved their aim, instead of training people on how to improve their aim, they did a nudge. And the nudge was nothing more than putting a simple sticker of a fly at the bottom of each urinal, providing each gentleman a target. And for every grown-up guy, there is a little boy waiting to come out. No guy can pass up a little target practice. 80% reduction in spillage, 8% reduction in overall maintenance costs at the airport for just applying the sticker. So one of the really neat things is, once again, if we work with human nature and we architect an environment where security is as simple as possible, not only do we get people to exhibit the behaviors we want them to do, But no longer is security the enemy of our workforce, but we're part of the team. Think about it, folks. Quite often, the reason security cultures are so toxic, why people hate security so much, is we fight human nature. We make work difficult for them. The simpler it is, the more likely we will be successful. Two ways to do that. One, we train people, we enable them, we educate them, we give them knowledge, skills, things like that. And the other one is we simplify security. And that's not reaching out to people, that's reaching out to ourselves, reviewing our policies, processes, and procedures. What can we eliminate? What can we simplify? So I'm just going to give you a real quick example on one of my favorite policies that I like to point out as our biggest failure. Year after year after year, the Verizon DBIR finds out the #1 common pattern involved in the most breaches and incidents is ultimately credentials, passwords. Passwords are one of the biggest risks most organizations face today. So you would think we'd have policies, processes, and procedures to address one of our biggest risks. We do. This is what they look like. They have to be complex. They have to have symbols, numbers, uppercase, lowercase. Mix in the blood of a virgin. Then change it every 90 days. Oh, by the way, did we mention every account must have a unique password? And you may never write it down. How easy could it be? Well, apparently not. I'm going to argue that a big reason passwords are such a big risk is because we've made them so complex, so hard, and so difficult. So what can we do to make passwords simpler? How can we architect an environment where we get people to do what we want? Well, first of all, why do we have password expiration? Kill it. 20 years ago, password expiration made sense. It took 90 days to crack the average password. Nowadays, 9 seconds. If you think having everyone in your organization increment that #1 at the end of their password to a #2 helps secure your organization, we're deluding ourselves. If you want to know why people hate security policies, here it is. Password expiration has, in this day and age, almost no security value. In fact, it can be argued it actually increases risk. Most organizations that have password expiration have password history. Have password history, you don't have one password hash, you've got 10. In other words, when the bad guy nails your password hashes, you've exponentially increased their chance of cracking passwords. By the way, NIST killed password expiration 2 years ago. Woo-hoo! So eliminate that what we can. If you can't eliminate a policy, can we replace the policy? So, for example, passwords are a pain. Is there something we can do to replace them? How about biometrics? Hey, we all know mobile phones. Biometrics. Are biometric fingerprints perfect? No. Can they be broken? Yes. But are they better than what we have now? You know, manually typing it in? Yes. So for the vast majority of the world, if you do your risk analysis, you do your threat modeling, this is good enough. And boy, it's much, much easier. When Apple rolled out biometrics on smartphones, screen lock use went astronomically up. So let's kill the most painful that we can. If we can't eliminate it, can we replace it? If we can't replace it, can we simplify it? Yes. Complexity. What's it good for? Making passwords really painful to remember, really difficult to type in. That's about it, folks. If you want entropy, if you want to create passwords that are difficult to crack, length, simple words, random words, long sentences, whatever, far easier to remember, far easier to type. Guess what NIST killed? Complexity. Woohoo! All right, so finally, can we provide tools that make their lives simpler? Absolutely. Why don't we provide everyone a password manager? Password managers remove vast amounts of pain. Hate generating passwords? Got it covered. Hate remembering passwords? Got it covered. Hate logging in? Got it covered. If you're going to require all these behaviors for passwords, we've got a tool. We've got to provide them a tool. I love it. I always get that one security geek out. You know what? Password managers, they're not perfect. They can be hacked. We don't have password managers in our organization. Folks, you're fighting human nature. Anytime a geek tells me we don't allow password managers, my response is, you do have password managers. However, your password manager is called sticky notes, Excel spreadsheets, and Google Docs. Don't fight human nature, work with human nature. Finally, make it simple to consume the information. At USAA, for their customer support team, their service desk teams, they provide their policies, processes, and procedures as a comic book. So they've really simplified, synthesized the key things people need to know, and then provide it in a fun, easy to read format. Here we see processes on how to identify red flags for fraudulent calls at their customer support center. Kudos to USAA for making security simple for their team. If you're going to need a nerd out and have some hardcore geeks, once again, let's give them the tools. Big term we're talking about in cybersecurity, dwell time. In other words, reduce the amount of time it takes to find a bad guy who's already in your network. Threat hunting, things like that. Well, instead of just depending on technology, why not build a strong security culture, develop human sensors, enable your IT admins to quickly identify and report indicators of compromise. Here's a fantastic spreadsheet you can download for free on the SANS website on the different Linux commands that you can use to identify the most common abnormalities. Folks, that's all detection is. Know what normal is, look for abnormal. Who better in your organization to identify abnormal than your IT admins who work with those systems every day? Do not discount the human. So for several years, the Verizon DBIR has found people more effective at detecting an incident than technology. Make that simple, give them these little cheat sheets, give them these little checklists. All right, folks, we're gonna round things up here. It's about 5-10 more minutes than I thought, but we'll have time for questions, but just a couple of things. To keep security simple, and remember, curse of knowledge, you and I perceive this as simple, the rest of the workforce, they're overwhelmed. I really recommend when you're communicating to your workforce, when you're trying to secure them, focus on the fewest topics, the fewest behaviors possible. The fewer behaviors you focus on, the more likely people will exhibit those behaviors, the more likely they will change behaviors. That's hard. One of the hardest things when it comes to securing the human element is not deciding what to teach, it's deciding what you're going to cut. When you do communicate, geeks, you know what? We love our stuff, we're very passionate, but you know what? A lot of the content we create, lots of word, little text, lots of words, few graphics, hard to read. Work with the graphic design team. Yes, I know you think, I think we have amazing PowerPoint kung fu. Trust me, we don't. Go to the graphic design team. And ultimately, always go back to the golden circle from Simon Sinek. When communicating, when starting any outreach initiative, don't start with the what and the how. Start with the why. It's very counterintuitive from the technical world, but it's key in the human world. And it's one of the reasons so many initiatives fail. We fail to begin with the fundamentals. If nothing else, remember Spock versus Homer. We think we're reaching out to Spock when, based on all of that research by Daniel Kahneman, by Thaler and Sunstein, Chris and Dan Heath, Robert Cialdini, Simon Sinek, Malcolm Gladwell, they all say the same thing. Don't do it for Spock, do it for Homer. Nothing else. Remember that one. All right, if you're going to talk about culture, if you're going to talk about human, you can't pass up this fantastic quote. Another famous one, often attributed to Peter Drucker, is the quote, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." Love it. You can have the best security strategy in the world. You've got a toxic security culture like Equifax had. Not now, they're doing great work, but like they had in 2017, you're going to have a failure no matter how much technology you throw at the problem. All right, folks, if you really enjoyed this, we actually have a 2-day class on security culture called Management 521. You can learn, and another one on human behavior called Management 433. Learn at the URL below. there's my email address. If you have any questions, any stories you want to share, or if you just want to nerd out, I would love to hear from you. But hey, Carol, do we have time for questions? And if so, are there any questions?
All right. Thanks, Lance, for that great presentation. We do have some questions ready for the Q&A. However, if anyone has any questions, please put it into the questions window now. The first one says, do you have a few on metrics and KPIs for measuring the effectiveness of culture change and activities?
Absolutely. I could do a deep dive on it, but I've actually got a very interactive security awareness culture metrics matrix. It's like a massive spreadsheet with a breakdown of all these different ones. So let's make this offer, folks. If anybody wants the matrix on security metrics for the human, it includes things like awareness, culture, compliance, ambassador programs, all that stuff. Just do me a favor, email me at this email address, and I'm happy to send you the metrics matrix. It's actually one of the resources we talk about in that 2-day class, but happy to share it to anyone for free. Yes. So your answer to the question. So the answer to the question is absolutely. But instead of me droning on for 10 minutes, I'll just send you the spreadsheet, and then we'll take it from there. So just email me at that email address.
All right, so I'm looking at this next one. It sounds like it's a repeat of the first, and then I think they're repeating the same thing again. It says, do you have a few metrics and KPIs for measuring? I think they were fixing what they had asked before. Okay, all right, let's go down to the next one here. When preparing a framework, where should one start?
When preparing a framework, where should one start? It depends what you mean by framework. If you're talking about like the NIST cybersecurity framework or critical controls, that's a much higher question. I'm assuming if you mean the idea of a culture framework or a framework for approaching culture. First of all, I would read 1 or 2 of those books I definitely talked about. Get a little bit more into the theory. If you only read 1 book, in fact, I'm assuming everybody can see my screen. Let me go ahead and pull up my screen again. If you only read 1 book,
we can see it. We can see your screen, yeah.
Do me a favor, just start with the Switch book. It's the easiest to read. If you really want to nerd out on it, boom. It depends on how much you want to nerd out. A couple of other things too is then I'd recommend Jen Cotter's book, Leading Change. You're going to want to learn more about the concept of organizational change. And actually, one of my favorite sites to do that is hbr.org. HBR.org stands for harvardbusinessreview.org. I keep finding myself going there because, like I said, why reinvent the wheel? Creating strong, innovative cultures is a huge part of business masters programs, lots of great research at HBR. So I've been stealing a lot from their world also. They call it either organizational change or change management. So when you're at the HBR website, if you look for change management, you're not talking about Jira or some type of ticket tracking system. You're talking about changing culture. But ultimately, if you're going to start with the framework for your own organization, start simple. The more complex you make this, the less likely it will happen. So that's why I've created or fundamentally leverage Newton's law, F equals MA. Anytime, and remember, culture is not about one single initiative. Culture is about building these fundamentals in any type of security initiative. So anytime you do any security outreach, you're going to roll out passwords, new laptops, VPNs, whatever. Start with these fundamentals of how can I motivate people, and then how can we make security simpler? But it may also involve teaching the security team a little bit too. So it's kind of a bit of a broad question. In fact, that's what the entire Management 521 course is all about. Management 521. So I just, whoops, hold on here. Let me post it to Carol, if you could forward those links I just posted to the chat channel. Looks like they're just going to the organizers.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So you're relaying it. So yeah, when it comes to putting that framework, we can create a great strategy. That's what the 2-day class is all about. But ultimately, whenever you're doing any type of outreach, how can we motivate and how can we enable? How can we make security simpler?
Next. All right, thanks. Someone says, excellent motivational presentation. Points are covered perfect. So, and the next question asks, are there any resources that maybe they might outline how companies that have improved from this type of culture shift? Anything with metrics to help build a case for management?
So what you're looking for is a case study on how to demonstrate the positive impact of change management, correct? Okay. So first of all, a couple of things. When you go to leadership, and I'm talking CISOs and above, and you start talking about, hey, organizational change, change management, remember the cool thing is, where did we get a lot of this? From HBR. So the first thing is, well, hey, I need to sell this concept of organizational change. If they've gotten an MBA, half the battle's already done for you, because at MBA programs now, master's businesses and things like that, any type of executive leadership, COOs, CFOs, this is a big part of their training. So they're not only already sold on it, but they've been trained on it. So when you're talking these books, resources, and all these terms I've talked about, the nice thing is we're already speaking leadership language. So part of it is, how do we sell it? A lot of times it's already sold because they know about this, they know the value, they know the impact. Now, and what's great is sites like HBR have a tremendous number of case studies demonstrating the positive impact of culture initiatives. In fact, I was just on there 2 weeks ago. They had a great one from, oh God, who's that shoe place that Amazon bought? My wife always buys shoes from there, but they also had one from Nike, Apple, and a couple of other places also. So they're all on there in HBR. Now, any specific case studies related to security culture? No, because this is still relatively known. Unfortunately, all of the examples we have are security culture failures. So, for example, Brian Krebs just yesterday posted a blog about the WikiLeaks hack or breach of the CIA in 2016. Apparently, in 2017, the CIA did a deep analysis of what went wrong, and that analysis just went public this week. And Brian Krebs, as usual, does an awesome study. The number one key finding from there, culture. They had a non-existent or really bad security culture. So lots of examples of where culture fails, just now going into developing case studies of culture successes, because we're just starting the initiatives, just starting to have the metrics and things like that. But like I said, this is not a new concept. We're stealing it from an existing world. And our advantage is you start mentioning these books, authors, or models like ProSize AdCard, J.B. Fogg's, John Cotter's. We're speaking their language. So it's already half sold.
All right, thanks. By the way, someone tells you that the store you're thinking of, or the online store, is Zappos.
Zappos, yes.
Okay.
Well, what's great about HBR is you do have to subscribe. It's $10 a month. I do. But if you don't, the first 10 articles a month are free. So, and the case studies are awesome.
All right, thanks. Real quick, what's the name of the security matrix again? Someone's fixing to send you an email.
Oh, just say metrics matrix or security metrics, or hey, Lance, can I have the metrics document? I'll know what you mean.
All right, thanks. Someone says, thanks, this is very helpful. It looks like our last one for today is, I'm working for a big company who have done very little work in awareness. I am the only FTE working in the team. How should I go about it?
Woo! All right, well, it kind of depends. The first battle is support, because what all of this research tells us, and any type of organizational change efforts, and that includes awareness, it's people. The more people you have, the more likely you're going to change. It never fails me. You'll get an organization, 30,000 people, and they're like, Lance, we tried awareness, it doesn't work. You just cannot change human behavior. And my first question is always, well, who is in charge? Oh, Dave over here. All right, how much time did Dave have? Well, Dave's our security analyst. He does security awareness in part of everything else he does. So it turns out that Dave is highly technical, has no experience in communication, no experience in change management, no experience in engaging others and changing behavior, and he only spends 20 to 30% of his time on awareness. And then we wonder why the awareness program doesn't fail. Oh, we'll just blame people. So what ends up happening is, what you want is, you need that combination of both understanding technology and the risks, but also understanding behavior and engagement, but full time. Now, if you're a full-time FTE and 100% of your time is dedicated awareness, that's a start. But if you're 20, 30, 40,000 people, even like 5, 10, about 10, 20,000 people, you should have at least 2 to 3 people dedicated full time. I don't understand it. I'll have an organization that will have 100 people on the security team. And then out of those 100 people, one person is focused on the human side, 99 are focused on the technology side. And then we continue to wonder why the human is the weakest link. Well, they're the weakest link because we're not doing anything for them. If you want, I've actually got a PowerPoint slide deck on presenting to leadership on how to get support for your awareness program. So if you want that slide deck, just email me also. So you can email me for the slide deck or the metrics matrix. And these are all resources from those classes I mentioned earlier.
All right, that's all the questions we have, Lance. A couple of people do say, thanks, Lance. This was really helpful. Thank you. And great presentation. Loved it.
Fantastic.
And, all right, great. And thank you so much, Lance, for your great presentation, which helps bring this content to the SANS community. To our audience, we greatly appreciate you listening in. For a schedule of all upcoming and archived SANS webcasts, including this one, please visit sans.org/webcasts. Until next time, take care, and we hope to have you back again for the next SANS webcast.